tied up and left to cry, until the rancher knew the unthinkable Wild West stories. Clara tightened her shawl around her shoulders, though it did little to protect her from the heat. She had been traveling alone for most of the morning, walking along the narrow dirt path that led out of the small town she called home. Her horse, a sturdy chestnut mare named Belle, moved steadily beside her, ears twitching at every rustle of the wind through the tall grass. Clara had been carrying baskets of supplies for her family's farm, flour, dried beans, and a few precious tools that her father had asked her to bring. Life on the farm was hard, but it was honest, and Clara took pride in helping her family survive another season. She had left early, hoping to return before the sun reached its peak, but the heat made every step feel heavier. The dry dirt cracked beneath her boots, and the sparse shade of the mesquite trees offered little comfort. Clara was used to the harshness of the land, but something about that morning felt off. The birds that usually sang in cheerful groups were silent. Even the wind seemed hesitant, carrying with it an uneasy stillness that made her skin prickle. Clara shook off the feeling, telling herself she was just being tired. She had traveled this path many times before, and danger usually stayed away from someone careful and aware. Yet as she rounded a bend near a rocky outcrop, she froze. Footsteps heavy and hurried crunched behind her. Her heart jumped into her throat. Clara turned slowly, trying not to make a sound, but it was too late. 3 men emerged from the shadows between the rocks, their faces partly hidden by wide-brimmed hats. They moved with the certainty of those who believed they had nothing to fear. Clara's mind raced. She had heard stories of bandits and thieves, but she had never thought she would meet one face to face. She tightened her grip on the basket of supplies, hoping to make herself seem braver than she felt. "Hold it right there, Missy," one of the men said, his voice rough like gravel. Clara's heart pounded so hard she thought they would hear it. I don't have anything of value," she stammered, trying to step back. The bandit laughed, a cold, sharp sound that made Clara shiver. "We'll see about that. Don't try anything foolish." Before she could react, one of the men lunged forward. Clara tried to pull away, swinging the basket to defend herself, but it was no use. The bandits were too strong, too practiced. Within moments, they had knocked her to the ground. Her hands were tied roughly behind her back with a coarse rope, the fibers biting into her skin. The other man shoved her against a tree, and she winced as the bark scraped her cheek. Now, the first bandit said, leaning close. "Don't cry, little lady. You'll live to see another day, maybe." His words were meant to intimidate, and they worked. Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she forced them back, blinking rapidly so the drops would not fall. She refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her fear. The bandits took her horse and her baskets, leaving her with nothing but the rough rope and the scorching sun. Clara struggled against the bonds, twisting and tugging until her wrists ached and the rope bit deeper. Her palms were raw, but she knew she could not give up. If she remained still, if she gave in to despair, she might not survive the heat or the cold that would come when night fell. The men disappeared over the ridge, laughing and shouting to one another. Clara was alone. The wind whispered through the tall grass, carrying away her cries before they could reach any human ears. Her chest heaved as she tried to calm herself, and she realized she needed a plan. There was no help coming from the town. She was too far out. She had to rely on her wits and strength to get free. Hours passed. Clara's mind raced with every possibility. She remembered the stories her father had told her as a child, about the clever tricks ranchers and travelers used to escape danger. She tried to mimic what she had heard, loosening her knots little by little, using the rough edges of the tree bark to rub against the rope. Every attempt hurt, but she refused to stop. Her determination became her strength. Her stomach grumbled. She had eaten nothing since dawn, and her throat was dry as sandpaper. The sun continued its relentless climb, baking the earth beneath her. Clara's vision blurred at the edges, and fatigue pressed on her like a heavy blanket. But in the back of her mind, one thought kept her going. Her family needed her. She would not let despair win. As the afternoon sun began its slow descent, Clara's efforts finally paid off. Her wrists were raw and bleeding, but the knots gave way enough for her to pull her hands free. She gasped for air, stretching her aching arms. Relief surged through her, but she knew she was not safe yet. The bandits could return at any moment, and she had no way to defend herself. She looked around, trying to spot any sign of civilization. The land stretched endlessly in every direction, rocky ridges, dry grass, and scattered trees. The nearest road was a long walk away, but Clara knew she had no choice. Summoning every ounce of courage, she started toward the distant ridge, moving slowly at first, then with more urgency as the heat faded into a gentle evening breeze. As she walked, Clara's thoughts turned to her family. She imagined their worried faces, the way her father's eyes would search for her, the concern her mother would feel. She pictured her younger brother, unaware of the danger she had faced, happily playing with the farm animals. That vision gave her the strength to keep moving, one careful step at a time. Hours passed, and the sky changed colors, fading from the harsh white of midday to soft oranges and pinks. Clara's feet were blistered, and her body ached in ways she had never known. She stumbled over rocks, scraped her legs on thorns, and almost fell more than once. But still, she pressed on. She refused to give up. Just as the last rays of sunlight began to disappear behind the horizon, Clara's sharp eyes caught a glint in the distance. A structure, faint and worn, but unmistakably a human dwelling. Her heart leaped. She knew it might be a small ranch or the home of someone kind enough to help, but she didn't care. The sight of any human presence was enough to give her hope. Summoning the last of her strength, Clara picked up her pace. The sound of her own breathing and the crunch of her steps against the dirt felt deafening in the quiet evening. She tried calling out, her voice hoarse, but only a whisper escaped her lips. Fear still gripped her, but it was tempered with hope. She was alive and she was going to survive. By the time she reached the property, exhaustion had taken over her body. She collapsed just outside the fence, trembling and soaked in sweat. The small porch light flickered on, and a figure appeared in the doorway. A man, tall and broad, wearing the dusty clothes of a rancher. He looked at her with surprise and concern, taking in the sight of her torn shawl, the raw marks on her wrists, and the desperate look in her eyes. Clara tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. All she could do was shake her head and point to her hands. The man didn't hesitate. He hurried down the steps, his face set with determination, and knelt beside her. "You're safe now," he said gently, his voice calm and steady. "I'll get you out of these ropes." For the first time since the morning, Clara allowed herself to cry. Tears streamed down her face, not just from the pain of her injuries, but from the relief that she had been found. She had survived, against the odds, and now someone was here to help. The journey was far from over, but in that moment, she felt a glimmer of hope. The rancher worked quickly and carefully, cutting the ropes and checking her for injuries. Clara's hands were raw and bleeding, but she didn't complain. She had endured far worse in the past hours. Once free, she sat back on the porch, watching the sky darken into deep purple and navy blue. The stars began to twinkle faintly, promising a night of safety she hadn't known she would see. The rancher offered her water and a blanket, and Clara accepted gratefully. As she sipped the cool water, she realized something important. She had faced terror and survived it alone until help arrived. She had fought with courage, cleverness, and determination. And now, with the kindness of a stranger, she would have the chance to rest, recover, and gather her strength for the challenges that lay ahead. Though she did not yet know it, this encounter would mark the beginning of a bond that could change both their lives forever. And for Clara, the long, terrifying day had ended with the smallest but most powerful comfort of all: someone who saw her, truly saw her, and would not let her suffer alone. The night settled over the ranch like a soft, protective blanket. The air, once harsh and unrelenting, had cooled, carrying with it the gentle scent of dry grass and the distant mountains. Clara sat wrapped in a blanket on the porch, her hands still tender and raw from the rope, but finally feeling a sense of safety she hadn't known all day. She glanced up at the stars, trying to make sense of the events that had led her here. Every sound, the creak of the porch, the distant howl of a coyote, reminded her that she was no longer alone. The rancher, whose name she soon learned was Samuel McAllister, but who preferred to be called Sam, moved about with quiet efficiency. He carried a lantern and began checking the barn, ensuring the horses were secure, and making sure no unwanted visitors had noticed the commotion earlier in the day. Sam was tall and strong, his broad shoulders and calm presence giving Clara an unexpected sense of comfort. Though his face was weathered by years of sun and wind, his eyes held a kind warmth, and she felt the first real relief since the attack. As he worked, Sam asked gently, "Can you tell me what happened back there, miss?" "Clara," she replied softly, her voice weak but steady. She hesitated, knowing she needed to be careful. I was attacked. They tied me up and took my horse and everything I was carrying. I don't know why they did it. I think it was for money or maybe supplies. I was just trying to bring food to my family." Sam nodded slowly, listening carefully. He had seen his share of desperate situations in the Wild West, but there was something different in Clara's eyes, a mix of fear, determination, and a strength that refused to be broken. He knew that whatever she had endured, she had survived not just by chance but because of her courage. "Rest now," he said after a moment. "You've had a long day and you need your strength. Tomorrow we'll figure out the next steps." Clara nodded, grateful for the simple words. She leaned back against the porch railing, feeling the wood warm beneath her. The blanket Sam had offered was thick and comforting, and for the first time that day, she allowed herself to close her eyes, listening to the night sounds as her mind wandered. But sleep did not come easily. Clara's thoughts kept returning to the attack. She replayed every moment, the way the men had appeared from the rocks, the roughness of the rope, the fear she had felt when they left her alone in the open land. Her heart still raced at the memory, but beneath the fear, a spark of determination burned. She had survived, and now, with Sam's help, she knew she could find a way to protect herself, to make sure something like this never happened again. Meanwhile, Sam worked quietly inside the ranch house, preparing a simple meal of bread, stew, and fresh water. He had lived alone for many years, and though he was used to solitude, helping Clara awakened a sense of responsibility he hadn't felt in a long time. He was not a man to take risks lightly, and yet something about this young woman stirred his protective instincts. He thought about the tracks he had noticed earlier that day, and a frown crossed his weathered face. Someone had been watching her, and they might come back. He had to be prepared. After a while, he called Clara inside. The house was small but tidy, filled with the comforting smells of home. Clara took a seat at the wooden table, her hands still bruised but her spirit slowly regaining its strength. The stew was simple but nourishing, and she ate carefully, savoring every bite. Sam watched her, saying little, but his presence was steady and reassuring. Once she had eaten, Clara spoke quietly, as if the words were difficult to form. "I don't know why they came after me," she said. "I wasn't carrying much, just supplies, but something told me it wasn't only for food or money. I think there's something else." Sam listened carefully, sensing that there was more to the story than she realized. "Go on," he said gently, encouraging her to speak without pressure. Clara hesitated, then continued. "My father, he kept a diary. It has records of our land, notes about hidden places on the property, and some secrets about our family. I don't know why the men were so determined, but I think they were after that diary." Sam's eyes narrowed. He had seen greed and desperation many times before, but this was different. This was not just a random act of theft. It was personal, and it could put Clara and her family in danger. He knew he had to act carefully. "We'll figure this out," he said firmly. "But first, you need to rest. You've been through more than most people face in a lifetime." Clara nodded, though her mind was restless. She wanted to understand why her father's diary was so important and how the men had found out about it. But she also trusted Sam's judgment. He was calm, experienced, and had a strength that reassured her. She allowed herself to settle in for the night, leaning back in the wooden chair, feeling the warmth of the room and the faint crackle of the fireplace. As she drifted into a light sleep, Sam remained vigilant. He checked the locks on the doors, inspected the perimeter of the ranch, and even examined the tracks outside to ensure that no one was following her. The night was quiet, but he knew that in the Wild West, danger often came silently. His instincts told him that this was not over, that Clara's attackers would return if they had any knowledge of her location. The following morning, the first rays of sunlight spilled across the ranch, casting long shadows over the land. Clara awoke feeling slightly stronger, her bruises and rope marks still tender but manageable. She found Sam already at work, tending to the horses and preparing for the day. His routine was methodical, and the way he moved with such confidence inspired Clara. She realized that she had been protected not only by his strength, but by his knowledge of the land and his experience as a rancher. After breakfast, Sam suggested they examine the area where Clara had been attacked. He wanted to understand what had happened and to track any signs that the bandits might return. Clara agreed, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. She wanted to face the danger rather than hide from it. Together, they walked the path she had traveled the day before, examining footprints, broken branches, and the faint marks in the dirt where her horse had been taken. As they worked, Sam explained some of the strategies he had learned over the years. He taught Clara how to read the land, notice subtle signs of movement, and understand the behavior of those who might be watching. Clara listened carefully, absorbing every word. She realized that survival was not just about strength. It was about observation, intelligence, and patience. By midday, they had gathered enough information to understand the layout of the attack. Sam pointed out likely hiding spots, escape routes, and areas where the bandits might have waited. Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was no longer just a victim. She was learning how to protect herself and how to anticipate danger. As the sun reached its peak, they returned to the ranch. Clara's exhaustion was replaced with a quiet determination. She knew that the diary her father had kept was important, and that she could not allow it to fall into the wrong hands. She also knew that Sam was someone she could trust, a man who had saved her life, and who had the knowledge to help her navigate the dangerous world she had found herself in. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun dip behind the mountains, Clara felt a bond forming between them. It was not just the bond of survivor and rescuer, but a partnership built on trust, courage, and the understanding that together, they could face the dangers ahead. Sam spoke little, but his presence was reassuring, and Clara felt a sense of hope she had not felt in a long time. She realized that the Wild West was not just a place of danger and hardship. It was also a place where courage, kindness, and determination could shine. And as the stars appeared once more in the night sky, Clara felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that she was not alone. The night passed quietly, but both Clara and Sam remained alert, understanding that danger might come again. They had survived the first encounter, and now they were preparing for the next. It was a test of patience, courage, and wits, a test they would face together. The morning sun rose slowly over the ranch, casting long golden rays across the dusty fields and wooden fences. Clara awoke feeling a mixture of exhaustion and determination. The events of the past 2 days had left her drained, but they had also sparked a quiet strength inside her that she had never fully realized. She moved carefully, her bruised wrists and arms reminding her of the violence she had endured, but also of her survival. Today, she knew, would be different. Today, she had to confront more than just fear. As she stepped out of the small cabin, she saw Sam already outside, checking the horses and repairing a section of the fence that had weakened in recent winds. He looked up and gave her a small nod, acknowledging her presence without breaking the rhythm of his work. Clara noticed the calm confidence in his movements and felt reassured. Sam was a man who had seen hardship and danger many times before, and yet his steady demeanor made her feel safe in a way she had not known for many hours. Clara knew she could not wait any longer. The bandits who had attacked her the day before were not random thieves. They were searching for something specific, something valuable that her family owned. She hesitated for a moment, thinking about how to explain it to Sam. She had shared a little the night before about her father's diary, but she realized now that the truth was far more important. The diary contained notes about hidden land, secret locations, and long-kept family secrets, information that could change the lives of her family forever if it fell into the wrong hands. Finally, she took a deep breath and spoke. "Sam, there's something I need to tell you. Something more than just the diary." Sam stopped what he was doing and turned to her, giving her his full attention. "Go on," he said quietly. His voice was calm but carried a seriousness that made Clara feel she could not hold back. Clara swallowed hard and continued. "My father kept the diary to protect our family. It has the location of hidden things on our land, money, tools, and notes about the farm that only he understood. I think the men who attacked me were after that diary. If they find it, they could take everything my family has worked for." Sam listened carefully, his eyes narrowing slightly as he processed her words. He had encountered greedy men before, people who would go to any length to get what they wanted, but the way Clara spoke showed him that this was more than simple theft. Someone had gone to great trouble to find her and her family's secrets. He realized that this was serious, and it required careful planning. "Clara," he said, placing a steady hand on her shoulder, "we need to make sure the diary is safe. If these men come back, we have to be ready. But first, we'll need to think about where it can be hidden and how to protect your family. Do you know where your father kept it last?" Clara nodded, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Yes, I think I do, but I was too afraid to go back to the house yesterday. I wasn't sure if they were still watching and I couldn't risk it alone, but with you maybe we can figure out a plan." Sam smiled faintly, impressed by her courage. "Good, we'll do it together. I know the land and I know how to stay hidden. We'll find a way to protect your family and make sure those men don't get what they want." With a plan beginning to form in their minds, they started the day by examining the surrounding area for any signs of the bandits' return. Sam pointed out tracks in the dirt, noting subtle patterns that would escape the untrained eye. He showed Clara how to read the land, to understand which tracks were fresh, which direction someone had moved, and where they might be hiding. Clara absorbed every detail, feeling the thrill of learning to survive and protect herself. Hours passed as they moved carefully across the fields and ridges near the ranch. The sun climbed higher, making the work exhausting, but Clara's determination never wavered. She realized that survival required more than strength. It required intelligence, observation, and patience. She began to understand why Sam had been so calm the night before. He had mastered the art of living in a dangerous world, and now he was teaching her the same skills. By midday, they returned to the ranch for a brief rest. Clara's body ached, but her mind was sharp and alert. She looked out across the fields, imagining the hidden secrets of her father's diary and the men who would stop at nothing to find it. Fear still lingered, but it was tempered by knowledge and preparation. She now felt she had a chance, not just to survive, but to take action. Sam suggested they move to a more secure location for the diary. He had a small storage area beneath the barn, hidden behind loose boards and a false floor where valuables could be kept safe. Clara agreed, trusting his judgment completely. Together, they worked to carefully transport the diary from her small home to the hidden spot, taking care to leave no traces that anyone could follow. Once the diary was secure, they took a moment to catch their breath. Clara sat on a bale of hay, feeling the weight of what had just happened. She realized how close she had come to losing everything, and yet here she was, alive, stronger, and beginning to understand her own courage. Sam watched her quietly, knowing that the young woman before him had changed in ways that only a crisis could bring. As evening approached, they prepared for the possibility of another encounter with the bandits. Sam taught Clara how to make simple traps and signals, using ropes, rocks, and small items to alert them if anyone approached the ranch. He also explained how to remain hidden and how to use the land to their advantage. Clara listened intently, practicing each step carefully. She felt empowered, no longer just a victim of circumstance but an active participant in her own protection. Night fell again over the ranch, and Clara and Sam sat together by the fire, watching the stars appear one by one. Clara felt a deep sense of gratitude for the man who had saved her and now guided her. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. And tonight, she was learning that courage could be shared, that two people working together could face dangers far greater than either could alone. The quiet of the night was comforting, but Clara remained alert. She thought about the bandits, wondering if they were still searching, wondering if they had realized she had escaped. She knew she had to remain vigilant, but for the first time, she did not feel completely alone. Sam's presence gave her hope and strength. As they sat in silence, Clara made a silent promise to herself. She would protect her family, she would keep her father's secrets safe, and she would not allow fear to control her life. She had faced danger, pain, and uncertainty, but she had survived. And now, with Sam by her side, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Sam, for his part, also felt the weight of responsibility settle upon him. He had saved Clara from immediate danger, but he knew that this was only the beginning. The bandits were clever and determined, and they would not give up easily. Yet he also saw the fire in Clara's eyes, the same fire he had admired in ranchers and travelers over the years, who refused to be defeated by circumstance. Together, they had a chance to outwit anyone who threatened them. By the time the moon rose high in the sky, Clara and Sam had made plans for the coming days. They would remain alert, continue to protect the diary, and prepare for any attempts to steal it. They had taken the first step in turning a moment of fear into a lesson in courage and survival. Clara's heart, once heavy with dread, now carried a sense of hope. She realized that even in a harsh and unforgiving land, kindness, wisdom, and determination could make all the difference. As they finally retired for the night, Clara felt a sense of calm. She had learned more about herself, about courage, and about trust in just one short day than she ever thought possible. She understood that the challenges ahead would be difficult, but she also knew she had someone by her side who could help her face them. And in the quiet of the ranch, with the stars shining above and the firelight dancing across the walls, she allowed herself to rest, knowing that tomorrow would bring new tests, new lessons, and new opportunities to grow stronger. The next morning dawned clear and bright over the ranch, with the sun casting long shadows across the fences and rolling fields. Clara awoke early, her mind buzzing with thoughts about the diary, her family, and the bandits who had attacked her. She knew that danger was still very real, and that the men might return at any time to search for the hidden diary. But she also felt stronger, more alert, and ready to take action alongside Sam, who had already been up for hours tending to the horses and checking the perimeter. Sam looked up as Clara stepped outside. "Good morning," he said quietly. "We need to stay alert today." I want to check the tracks from yesterday and see if we can learn anything new about the men who attacked you." Clara nodded. Her hands were still tender, but she felt a fire inside her, a determination to face whatever came next. Together, they moved across the property, examining footprints, broken twigs, and faint marks in the dirt. Sam explained the small details of the land, which rocks could hide footprints, how the wind could carry sounds, and which paths were most likely to be used by travelers or by intruders. Clara listened carefully, absorbing every detail, knowing that knowledge could save her life. Hours passed as they surveyed the land. Clara's determination grew with each step. She was learning to think like someone who had to survive in a world full of danger, noticing things that most people would miss. She realized that courage alone was not enough. She needed intelligence, awareness, and quick thinking. Sam had taught her how to read the land, and now she could see patterns in the footprints and shadows that told her more than words ever could. By midday, they returned to the barn to plan their next move. Sam suggested creating simple but effective traps and signals around the property. They used ropes, rocks, and old boards to set up small alarms that would alert them if anyone approached. Clara watched closely, learning how to use her surroundings to their advantage. She felt a sense of empowerment. She was no longer only a victim but an active participant in her own protection. Once the traps were in place, Sam and Clara turned their attention to the hidden diary. They carefully removed it from its secret spot under the barn floor and examined it. The leather cover was worn, and the pages were filled with her father's neat handwriting. Clara's fingers traced the words, feeling a connection to her family and to the knowledge that her father had protected for so many years. "This is more than just a book," Sam said quietly. "It's a map, a record, and a key to your family's safety. We have to make sure it stays safe, no matter what." Clara nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She knew that protecting the diary meant protecting her family and their future. And now, with Sam by her side, she felt they could succeed. The afternoon passed uneventfully, but the quiet made both of them alert. Sam noticed small details that Clara might have missed: a branch that had been moved, a faint imprint in the soft soil near the edge of the property. He tensed, realizing that someone might have been watching. "We're not alone," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Keep your eyes open and stay ready." Clara's heart raced, but she trusted Sam completely. She stayed close, moving with him as they checked the fences, the barn, and the surrounding fields. Every rustle in the grass, every distant sound made her alert, but she no longer felt paralyzed by fear. Instead, she felt focused, ready to act if needed. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the land, Sam and Clara settled near the barn to plan their next steps. They knew the bandits could return at any moment, and they needed a strategy to protect the diary and themselves. Sam suggested splitting their efforts. He would monitor the main approaches to the ranch while Clara stayed in a secure position, watching the less obvious paths. This way, they could cover more ground and react quickly if anyone appeared. Clara agreed, understanding that their safety depended on teamwork. She moved to a concealed spot near the edge of the property, hiding behind rocks and tall grass. She felt a mixture of fear and excitement. Fear because danger was near, excitement because she was learning to face it with courage and intelligence. She checked the traps they had set, making sure everything was in place, and prepared to signal Sam if anything happened. Hours passed with tense silence. The wind rustled through the grass, carrying distant sounds from the hills. Clara strained her eyes, scanning for movement, her senses alert to every detail. She began to notice patterns: the way shadows shifted with the sun, the faint tracks of animals, and the subtle differences between natural marks and those made by humans. Her training with Sam was paying off. She could anticipate movement and potential threats, giving her a sense of control she had never known before. Just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting golden light across the fields, Clara saw a shadow moving near the edge of the property. Her heart jumped. She quickly checked the traps. They had not been disturbed, which meant the intruder had found a way to avoid them. She signaled Sam with a small whistle they had agreed upon, and he appeared within moments, his presence steady and commanding. The two of them observed the figure carefully. It was one of the bandits, moving cautiously, clearly searching for something. Sam whispered instructions to Clara, guiding her to remain hidden while he approached the man from another direction. Clara held her breath, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. She had learned to stay calm under pressure, and now that skill was being tested in a real encounter. Sam moved swiftly and quietly, using the shadows and terrain to his advantage. When the bandit reached the barn, Sam caught him off guard, grabbing his arm and pinning him against the wall. Clara watched from her hidden spot, her heart racing but her mind sharp. The bandit struggled, but Sam's strength and experience were too much for him. Within moments, the situation was under control. Clara and Sam worked quickly to ensure the bandit could not escape. They tied him securely, making sure he could not cause further harm, and began questioning him carefully. The man, frightened and realizing he had been outsmarted, revealed little at first, but under Sam's calm and firm guidance, he admitted that they were searching for a valuable diary and were hired by someone else. Clara's fears were confirmed. The danger was far from over, and more people might be involved. After ensuring the bandit was contained and would not escape, Sam and Clara returned to the safety of the ranch house. Clara felt a mixture of relief and determination. They had managed to stop the immediate threat, but the knowledge that others were searching for the diary made her realize the challenges ahead. She also felt a quiet pride in herself. She had stayed alert, followed Sam's guidance, and learned to face danger without panic. That night, as they sat together by the fire, Clara reflected on the day's events. She realized that courage was not just about fighting or surviving. It was about learning, observing, and acting wisely. She had grown stronger, smarter, and more capable, and she knew that the journey was far from over. Sam, observing her quietly, recognized the change as well. The young woman who had arrived at his ranch 2 days ago was no longer just a frightened traveler. She was a partner in facing the dangers of the Wild West. Together, they made plans for the coming days. They would continue to protect the diary, remain vigilant, and prepare for any attempts by the bandits to return. Clara understood now that survival required strategy, courage, and trust, and she had all three working alongside Sam. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Clara felt a sense of quiet confidence. She knew that the path ahead would be challenging, but she also knew that with knowledge, courage, and a trusted companion, she could face whatever came next. And in that moment, sitting by the fire with Sam beside her, she realized that she was no longer alone in the world, and that together they could outsmart anyone who threatened them. The morning light spilled across the ranch, soft and golden, painting the fences and fields with warmth. Clara awoke with a deep sense of purpose. The past days had been full of fear, struggle, and uncertainty, but she now felt stronger, more alert, and determined to protect her family and the secrets her father had left behind. She looked over at Sam, who was already up, tending to the horses as quietly and carefully as always. His calm confidence had become her anchor, and she knew that together they could face whatever dangers remained. After a simple breakfast of bread, cheese, and fresh water, Sam and Clara discussed the day's plan. They both knew that the bandits could attempt another attack at any time, and the diary, which held her family's history and secrets, had to remain safe. Sam suggested they prepare traps and alarms in key locations around the ranch to catch anyone who might try to sneak in. Clara agreed, moving with determination despite her lingering soreness from previous days. They worked side by side, setting up clever warning systems using ropes, bells, and hidden markers. Clara found that she was quick to learn, picking up Sam's methods and even suggesting improvements that made the defenses more secure. She felt a sense of empowerment that she had never known before. The young woman who had arrived at the ranch tied up and frightened was no longer the same. She had transformed into someone cautious, clever, and brave. By midday, the ranch was as secure as it could be, and Clara and Sam took a moment to rest. They sat on the porch, watching the rolling fields and distant mountains, the quiet punctuated only by the soft sounds of horses and birds. Clara reflected on the events that had brought her here, the ambush, her escape, and Sam's timely intervention. She realized that her fear had been replaced by determination, and that the bond between her and Sam had grown into something built on trust, respect, and shared experience. Just as they were beginning to relax, Clara noticed a faint movement near the edge of the property. Her heart quickened and she pointed it out to Sam. He nodded, his expression serious but calm. They moved quickly and silently, taking positions that would give them the advantage. The figure was one of the bandits, the same man who had survived their previous encounter. He was cautious but clearly desperate, scanning the area as though trying to find a hidden object. Clara's hands trembled slightly, but she controlled her fear. She knew that this was the moment they had been preparing for. Sam whispered instructions, guiding her to a safe spot where she could watch the intruder without being seen. Clara stayed still, alert to every detail, the man's movements, the direction of his gaze, and the faint tracks he left in the soft soil. She realized that her observations could make the difference between success and failure. With careful timing, Sam approached the bandit from another angle. The man did not notice him until it was too late. Sam moved quickly, grabbing him and holding him firmly. Clara watched from her hiding spot as the man struggled, his confidence shattered by Sam's strength and careful planning. Within moments, the threat was contained. Clara felt a surge of relief and satisfaction. She had learned to anticipate danger, and together they had stopped it. After securing the bandit, Sam and Clara questioned him carefully. He revealed that he and his companions had been hired by someone seeking the diary, unaware of the traps and preparations the pair had made. Clara's fears were confirmed. The threat was larger than she had imagined, but the immediate danger had been neutralized. They could now focus on securing the diary and preparing for any future attempts. Once the bandit was restrained, they returned to the barn and carefully hid the diary in a safer location, one that only they knew. Clara traced her fingers over the worn leather cover, feeling the weight of her family's legacy. She realized that the diary represented more than just secrets or hidden treasures. It was a connection to her father, to her family's history, and to the values he had taught her. She felt a deep sense of responsibility and a renewed determination to protect it at all costs. As the day wore on, Clara and Sam worked together to reinforce the ranch and ensure that all entrances and approaches were secure. They moved with quiet efficiency, understanding that vigilance was essential. Clara's confidence grew with every task, and Sam watched her with quiet admiration. She was no longer the frightened young woman he had first met. She was resourceful, brave, and fully engaged in protecting what mattered most. Evening fell, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Clara and Sam sat together on the porch, tired but satisfied with their work. The air was cool and gentle, and the distant mountains glowed in the fading light. Clara reflected on everything she had learned in the past days. Courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Trust was built through shared experience, and strength was not only physical, but also mental and emotional. Sam spoke quietly, breaking the comfortable silence. "You've grown stronger than you know, Clara. You faced danger, learned from it, and now you're ready for whatever comes next. Your family is lucky to have you." Clara smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. "I couldn't have done it without you, Sam. You taught me to stay calm, to observe, and to act carefully. I feel like I can face anything now." The night passed quietly, and for the first time in many days, Clara felt safe enough to sleep soundly. She knew that the bandits might still be out there, searching, but she also knew that she had the skills, knowledge, and allies she needed to protect herself and her family. She had faced fear and danger, and she had emerged stronger for it. The following morning, the ranch was calm. Clara and Sam spent the day preparing for the possibility of future threats, strengthening their defenses, and planning for how to protect the diary long-term. They moved with confidence and purpose, each task reinforcing the bond of trust and cooperation between them. Clara's growth was evident in every decision she made, and Sam could see the courage and intelligence she had developed. As the sun began to set on another day, Clara thought about her family and the journey that lay ahead. She realized that the events of the past days had changed her forever. She had learned that survival required courage, intelligence, and partnership, that danger could be faced and overcome, and that trust in the right people could make all the difference. That evening, as the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Clara and Sam sat together, watching the peaceful landscape. Clara felt a deep sense of gratitude for the man who had saved her life, guided her, and helped her grow stronger. She also felt a renewed commitment to protect her family and the secrets her father had entrusted to her. With the diary safe, the bandits contained, and the ranch secure, Clara realized that a new chapter of her life was beginning. She had faced fear, survived danger, and discovered a strength within herself that she had never known. And as she sat beside Sam, feeling the cool night air and watching the stars, she knew that no matter what challenges the future might hold, she would be ready to face them with courage, wisdom, and determination. The Wild West remained a harsh and unpredictable place, full of danger and uncertainty. But Clara no longer felt helpless or afraid. She had learned to read the land, anticipate threats, and trust in the strength of herself and those she could rely on. The bond she had formed with Sam was unspoken but powerful, a partnership forged in the trials of survival, trust, and courage. As the night deepened and the fire's glow softened, Clara felt a sense of peace. She knew that her family's legacy was safe, her own courage had grown, and she had found an ally she could trust. The challenges they had faced together had strengthened them both, and she knew that whatever the future held, she would not face it alone. The story of her escape, survival, and growth was one she would carry forever. It was a tale of courage, intelligence, and hope, a testament to the power of human determination, trust, and resilience. And as Clara looked up at the endless sky filled with stars, she knew that the unthinkable she had faced had transformed her life in ways she could never have imagined. In the quiet of the ranch, with the diary safe and the bandits thwarted, Clara allowed herself to rest fully, knowing that she had not only survived but grown stronger, wiser, and braver. She had faced fear, taken action, and discovered the depth of her own courage. And in that moment, she understood a truth that would guide her forever. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the strength to keep moving forward despite it.